The book of 3 John is the shortest book in the Bible by word count, yet it carries one of the most powerful lessons about spiritual health, hospitality, leadership, and dealing with division within the church. Written by the Apostle Jonathan, referred to as the elder, in his letters, this personal letter is directed not to a church body, but to an individual named Gaius. Through this intimate message, we get a rare glimpse into the relational struggles and moral decisions facing early Christians and how these lessons still apply today. John begins this third epistle with warmth and blessing. The elder to the beloved Gaius, whom I love in truth. This opening reflects the apostle's deep affection for God. The phrase "in truth" is not simply poetic. John is emphasizing a love rooted in shared commitment to God as truth, not sentimentality. As we saw in John's other letters, truth and love are always intertwined. In verse 2, John makes a remarkable statement that reveals the theme of spiritual well-being. I pray that all may go well with you, and that you may be in good health, as it goes well with your soul. Here, John draws a connection between physical health and spiritual health, implying that spiritual vitality is even more important than outward circumstances. In modern terms, we might say that John is praying for Gaius to prosper in every way but, especially in his soul. This verse remains one of the most quoted in Christian wellness teachings, reminding believers to prioritize spiritual wholeness. John then commends Gaius in verse 3. For I rejoiced greatly when the brothers came and testified to your truth, as indeed you are walking in the truth. What a testimony to be known by others for faithfully living in God's truth. John continues in verse 4 with an emotional confession. I have no greater joy than to hear that my children are walking in the truth. These children may be spiritual disciples of John, and this statement speaks to the heart of any leader, parent, or teacher who delights in seeing others grow in faith. In verses 5 through 8, John praises Gaius for his hospitality to traveling missionaries, saying, You are doing a faithful thing in all your efforts for these brothers, strangers as they are. This was a key concern in the early church. Without hotels or safe lodging for preachers and missionaries, Christians relied on the hospitality of believers to spread the gospel. Gaius went above and beyond in caring for them. John notes, they have testified to your love before the church. The significance here is twofold. First, Gaius demonstrated biblical hospitality, which was seen as an essential Christian virtue. Second, his hospitality supported the missionary work of spreading the gospel, which John emphasizes by saying these men have gone out for the sake of the name, meaning Christ. John urges the church to support such workers so that they may be fellow workers for the truth. But then, the tone of the letter changes. In verses 9 to 10, John addresses a man named Diotrephes, who presents a serious problem in the local church. John writes, I have written something to the church, but Diotrephes, who likes to put himself first, does not acknowledge our authority. This is a sharp rebuke. Diotrephes had rejected apostolic authority, refused to welcome traveling believers, and exercised abusive control over the congregation. John exposes Diotrephes' pride and divisiveness. He gossips maliciously about the apostles and even throws out faithful believers from the church. This paints a picture of early church politics gone wrong where some leaders, rather than shepherding the flock, sought personal power. The Bible warns repeatedly against such leaders. In Acts 20:30, Paul prophesied that from among your own selves will arise men speaking twisted things, to draw away the disciples after them. Diotrephes was one such man, but John contrasts his toxicity with another figure to me. In verse 12, John says, Demetrius has received a good testimony from everyone and from the truth itself. While we know little about Demetrius, this single line shows he lived with integrity and was respected not just by people, but by the standard of truth itself. John urges the church to receive such men gladly. Finally, John closes this brief letter in verses 13 to 15, saying he has much more to write, but would rather speak face to face. This echoes the same sentiment from 2 John and reveals the personally, relational nature of early Christian ministry. John concludes with a wish for peace and greetings to others by name and intimate ending, for a very personal letter. Core teachings in the book of 3 John. Spiritual health matters as much or more than physical prosperity. True wellness begins in the soul, and John prays for both. Walking in the truth is the highest Christian testimony. Gaius is praised not for his achievements, but for faithful living. Hospitality is a sacred act in God's kingdom. Supporting gospel workers makes us fellow workers for the truth. Prideful leadership disrupts the church. Diotrephes represents what happens when ego replaces submission to God. Reputation and character matter. Demetrius was commended not by gossip, but by truth. Christian love includes confronting wrongdoing. John is not afraid to name Diotrephes and correct abuse. Fellowship is essential. John values face-to-face connection, showing the importance of real relationships.